The sun splits the horizon of Mount Olympus, and the clouds shrouding the palace of the gods gleam with silent lightning. Inside there are no battles or mortal applause, only the distant echo of the wind between golden columns. Zeus, the supreme king, awakens on his colossal throne, but he doesn't raise his arm to hurl lightning bolts. He observes the void, he reflects, and he plans. The life of the god of thunder, which many imagine to be filled with glory and epic wars, was much more chaotic and, strangely, human. What did he really do during the day? What secrets lurked behind the gates of Olympus? Today, we'll explore this hidden routine and reveal a side of Zeus that legends never told, a side that will forever change how you view the Greek gods. If you want to discover every detail of this story and explore the darkest secrets of mythology, subscribe to the channel and leave a like so you don't miss the next episodes. Zeus, the name that echoed like thunder across the skies of ancient Greece. To every mortal who looked up and saw lightning tearing through the clouds, that sound was not just a natural phenomenon, it was the voice of the supreme god announcing his presence. The absolute ruler of Mount Olympus, lord of lightning and storms, feared and revered in equal measure. It was to him that kings sacrificed bulls on stone altars and warriors supplicated before marching into battle. The supreme judge, the father of the gods, the only one capable of deciding the fate of entire cities with a single gesture. But behind the imposing marble statues and the songs sung in his honor lay a very different Zeus than most imagine. The king of Olympus didn't live solely on glory and power. His days were marked by forbidden passions, jealousy, betrayal, and dramas so human they surprise even those familiar with mythology. The ancients portrayed him as invincible, but they also knew his flaws. They spoke of the mortal lovers who aroused Hera's fury, the political intrigues within the divine council, and the heavy silences that preceded storms. Zeus was not a cold ruler. He was a god driven by intense emotions, capable of loving and hating with the same force with which he commanded the heavens. To understand who he was, we must return to ancient Greece, a world where every thunderclap was interpreted as a divine warning, where human life revolved around the will of the gods. There was no science to explain lightning, nor wars without prayers to temples. Every successful harvest, every victory in battle, every birth was seen as proof that Zeus had been pleased, or angered. And atop Olympus, amid golden columns and eternal clouds, he watched it all. Contrary to popular belief, Zeus didn't spend his days in epic battles. His routine, hidden from mortal eyes, was surprisingly mundane. Between political decisions, family rivalries, and daily rituals, he shaped not only life on Olympus, but also the fates of heroes and monsters who marked history. It's time to step through the doors of this celestial palace and see Zeus as few have dared, not just as a myth, but as a living character, with quirks, vices, and routines that completely change our view of the Greek gods. As mortals looked to the sky and saw every flash of lightning as a divine warning, they believed Zeus was always busy ruling everything, from the fate of cities to the rains that would make crops grow. To them, the king of Olympus was the image of supreme authority, an unattainable being who controlled every detail of the world with wisdom and calm. But the truth behind the sacred clouds was far more chaotic and, surprisingly, far more human. Zeus didn't spend his days hurling thunderbolts incessantly, nor orchestrating epic wars. Much of his routine was filled with family intrigues, quiet disputes, and dilemmas any patriarch could recognize. Siblings who challenged his authority, sons seeking to prove their worth, and a wife whose jealousy was as devastating as the storms he himself created. In the popular imagination, Zeus's golden throne seemed a symbol of absolute power, but in practice, it was the center of an arena of constant conflict. Poseidon, lord of the seas, demanded more respect and submerged lands. Hades, guardian of the underworld, demanded equality and questioned decisions affecting the dead. And Hera, queen of the gods and wife of Zeus, waged silent battles, not only out of jealousy of her husband's amorous adventures, but also over who truly ruled the fate of Olympus and its divine families. And while mortals believed that Zeus's every decision was the fruit of infinite wisdom, the reality was quite different. Often, his actions were driven by anger, wounded pride, or simple whim. A city could be blessed by a gesture of sincere adoration, and another destroyed by a banal insult. He was venerated as the wisest of the gods, but his weaknesses, desires, fears, vanities, brought him much closer to humans than one might imagine. This revelation completely changes the way we view Olympus. Far from being a paradise of divine order, it was a stage for endless dramas, where alliances were formed and broken every day. If you've always believed that a god's life was made up of nothing but glory and perfection, prepare yourself to Zeus's routine was a whirlwind of chaos and secrets that transformed even the most sacred of heavens into a theater of intrigue.
Silent harps. On his colossal throne, encrusted with gold and rare gems, Zeus opened his eyes. There were no war cries, no thunder roaring in the distance, only the distant echo of death drums rising from the valley. As the humans below lit torches and burned offerings, the smoke from the meat and wine spiraled up to Olympus. Each puff of smoke was a prayer, a silent request. Who begged for rain to save crops? Who dared to ask for victory in an unjust war? Who simply forgot to give thanks? Zeus watched everything in silence. The trembling knees of families offering their last harvests, the kings promising temples and sacrifices in exchange for glory. And he also saw the ungrateful, those who even blessed kept their altars empty. For the king of thunder, every gesture was a silent judgment. A poorly made offering was enough for lightning to streak across the sky and destroy entire walls. A simple act of humility was enough to draw a smile from the supreme god and guarantee a season of prosperity. As Olympus slowly awakened, Athena honing her strategies, Ares thirsting for war, Aphrodite lost in her own vanity, Zeus was already plotting the fate of entire cities with a flick of his hand. He decided who would live, who would suffer, who would be ignored. And yet, there was something curious. Zeus reveled in human unpredictability. It was like watching a show that changed with each dawn, and he, from the highest throne in the universe, was the invisible director who chose whether the scene would end in blessing or chaos. But this was only the first hour of the day. Soon, Zeus would leave contemplation to delve into divine counsel, and that's when the chaos began.
After the silent judgment of the human offerings, Zeus rose from his golden throne and walked through the colossal hall of Mount Olympus. The marble columns, so tall they disappeared into the clouds, vibrated with the Thunder King's every step. It was time to face the most turbulent part of his day, the divine council. And, contrary to what many imagine, that sacred place was rarely a scene of peace. There, the gods who shaped the fate of the world gathered, and, almost always, to fight. Hera, queen of Olympus, and wife betrayed countless times, took her place with her arms crossed and a piercing gaze. Poseidon, lord of the seas, made a point of raising his trident at every complaint, demanding respect and territory. Ares, thirsty for war, pounded his fist on the table and interrupted any attempt to conciliation with shouts of battle and glory. The air became dense, charged with lightning ready to explode. Zeus, seated in the center, observed more than he spoke. His silence wasn't weakness, it was a warning. A simple raise of his eyebrows was enough to silence the gods. A thunderous look could end arguments before they began. He set the tone for conversations, but he did so without ever fully revealing his plans. The balance of Olympus didn't come from harmony. It came from the fear and respect he inspired. Amidst accusations and fragile alliances, decisions arose that would shape the mortal world. Where it would rain, where the sun would shine, who would receive fertility, and who would be condemned to drought. Natural phenomena were like pieces on a cosmic chessboard that Zeus moved according to his moods and interests. A king who disrespected the gods could see his harbors destroyed by storms. A faithful hero could receive favorable winds and the blessing of victory. It was politics, but also spectacle. And most intriguingly, not all the disputes were truly divine. Many were personal. Ares' desire for war might stem from a provocation from Athena. Poseidon's wrath might stem from his envy of Apollo. And Zeus, at the center of this chaos, had to act as judge, manipulator, and sometimes silent player. He kept each rival in check, ensuring that none amassed enough power to challenge him. But this balance was fragile. A single mistake could turn the divine council into a battlefield and plunge gods and mortals alike into irreversible chaos.
If there was anything that silently shaped the fate of Olympus and mortals, it wasn't just wars or lightning bolts hurled from the sky. It was Zeus's restless heart. Behind the golden throne and the countenance of Supreme King, there was a god driven by uncontrollable desires. He wasn't just the Lord of Thunder, he was the unwitting architect of forbidden romances and inevitable tragedies. Each of Zeus's passions began as a whisper on the wind, but ended as a storm that shook entire worlds. In temples, mortals venerated him as a perfect and aloof figure. But on Olympus, everyone knew the truth. Zeus was driven by impulses as human as they were divine. A mortal of rare beauty, he descended to earth disguised as a golden shower. An unattainable goddess, he transformed himself into an animal or a gentle breeze to conquer her. From this web of love were born legendary heroes like Hercules, Perseus, and Helen of Troy. But along with them came wars, grudges, and curses that would echo for generations. And at the center of this hurricane was always Hera. The queen of Olympus not only knew every betrayal, she made a point of avenging each one. Her jealousy burned like an eternal fire, and her revenge was feared by gods and mortals alike. Bastard children of Zeus were hunted relentlessly. Mortal lovers paid the price with madness or unimaginable tragedies. Many of Hercules' cruelest labors, for example, were not divine punishments for mortals. They were the fruit of Hera's silent resentment against her husband's escapades. This conjugal warfare shaped even divine politics. Cities that revered Hera were protected. Those associated with Zeus's children suffered inexplicable storms and droughts. Human fate was decided not only in councils on Olympus, but in private discussions between husband and wife. And in these disputes, Aphrodite mocked ironically, Ares used chaos to provoke wars, and Athena silently calculated her advantages. On Olympus, the greatest danger didn't come from the monsters of Tartarus or the forgotten Titans. True chaos arose within the palace's golden walls when the love and fury of Zeus and Hera clashed. It was in these moments that the fate of men and even the gods themselves could be changed forever.
When the sun reached its zenith and golden light flooded Olympus, Zeus withdrew from the hubbub of banquets and the heated discussions of the divine council. He sought silence, not for peace, but to keep watch. From atop the eternal clouds, the king of the gods gazed down at the mortal world with a gaze that mingled curiosity and judgment. Down below, every human gesture was seen. The kings who pleaded for victory, the peasants who begged for rain, the warriors who defied their own fate, unaware they were being watched. For Zeus, humanity was paradoxical, fragile as dust before his wrath, yet capable of acts so daring that not even the gods could foresee them. It was in these moments that he closely observed the heroes and monsters who shaped myths. Hercules, his most famous son, performed impossible feats while enduring Hera's wrath, and Zeus, from on high, wavered between pride and guilt. Prometheus, the titan who dared to steal fire for mankind, remained chained to a distant rock. Zeus maintained his punishment, but watched in silence, torn between divine justice and the weight of regret. This vigil was not merely contemplative, it was an invisible tribunal. A single human gesture could redefine the fate of entire cities. A poorly executed sacrifice attracted lightning. A temple erected with devotion could ensure abundant harvests. For mortals, chance decided fate. For Zeus, it was a delicate balance between justice and caprice. As dusk fell, Olympus fell silent. No words were spoken, but the weight of decisions about to be made was felt. While mortals went about their lives oblivious to the divine presence, their fates were shaped by an invisible gaze and by a heart that, though divine, carried very human passions and weaknesses. As night fell over Olympus and the sky was embroidered with constellations, Zeus's palace lit up in golden light. It was the signal for the divine banquets to begin. Immortal wines flowed from golden goblets, tables curved beneath glistening fruits and never-rotting meats, while the music of lyres and flutes filled the marble corridors. But behind the veneer of celebration lay the true heart of Olympus. Whispered intrigues between toasts, scornful glances exchanged in silence, and pacts sealed under the veil of music. Hera, with her cold eyes, watched Zeus's every smile. Ares provoked Poseidon, transforming ancient disputes into new conflicts. And, amid laughter and dancing, decisions were made that would change the destinies of mortals and immortals alike. On Olympus, even the feast was war, and chaos reigned under the guise of wine and music.
Behind his title of King of the Gods, Zeus hid secrets that few dared reveal. Although he ruled Olympus, he was not omnipotent. His orders, however feared, often needed to be validated by the divine council, a group of gods who, on occasion, dared to challenge the Lord of the heavens himself. This dependence weakened the image of absolute power mortals had of him, and revealed a little-known side. Zeus was as much a hostage to politics as any human king. There was also a constant fear that haunted him: prophecies. Numerous oracles predicted that one day he would be dethroned by one of his own children, just as he had done with his father, Cronus. This prediction left him paranoid, distrusting each descendant and making ruthless decisions to avoid the fate he feared. Many of his children were hidden, others persecuted, and even cursed, all to preserve his throne. Zeus's glory, ironically, was sustained by the fear of losing it. Another surprising aspect was his emotional nature. Despite being divine, Zeus was driven by passion, jealousy, and pride. His romances with goddesses and mortals, as numerous as they were legendary, sparked wars, curses, and family intrigues that shaped Greek history. Hera, his wife, did not remain silent. She responded to his betrayals with calculated revenge, cruelly punishing lovers and illegitimate children, and these marital conflicts had a direct impact on entire cities and even famous heroes. And, incredibly, humans learned to exploit these weaknesses to manipulate the Thunder King. Grand sacrifices, monumental temples, and lavish festivals were offered not only as a demonstration of faith, but also as a political strategy to win his favor. The greater the gesture, the greater the chance Zeus would favor a city with abundant rainfall or victories in war. The image of an invincible Zeus falls apart when we understand these contradictions. He was the supreme god, but also a vulnerable being, full of fears and desires, characteristics that, paradoxically, make him even more fascinating to us today.
As you swipe your phone screen before bed, spying on other people's lives for distractions, imagine Zeus doing something very similar, but from atop Mount Olympus. From up there, he watched mortals' every move, curious about their choices, their betrayals, their desperate prayers. The scene may seem distant, but deep down, it's surprisingly familiar. We snoop on social media, he snooped through the vastness of the sky. The difference? Our opinions get likes. His judgments could change the fate of entire cities. As powerful as he was, Zeus faced dilemmas that today we would call family problems. On Olympus, intrigues unfolded like a timeless reality show. Siblings vying for influence, children challenging authority, marital quarrels that echoed throughout the cosmos. Replace the gods with ordinary people, and you'll see, the tensions of vanity and power remain the same, just with a different setting and new tools. Imagine Zeus, accustomed to being worshipped in temples, living in our time and seeing likes and followers as the new offerings. If mortals once erected altars to gain his attention, today we seek that same recognition through notifications on our screens. And just as he was enraged by disrespect or betrayal, we react the same way when we feel someone has hurt our ego. Technology changes, but the essence remains. Understanding Zeus is, at its core, looking at ourselves and realizing that millennia later, we remain driven by the same fears, desires, and quests for approval that shaped the legends of ancient Greece.
At the end of it all, when silence covered Mount Olympus and the sky filled with stars, Zeus remained motionless on his golden throne. There, where thunder roars and winds obey, the king of the gods seemed less an invincible figure and more a prisoner of his own power. He ruled the heavens, but he battled far more dangerous storms, those that came from within his own family. Proud brothers, ambitious sons, a vengeful wife. Olympus was no paradise. It was a silent battlefield where alliances shifted with every feast and where the slightest slip could spark eternal wars. That's what makes Zeus fascinating. Not his perfection, but the humanity hidden beneath the myth. Because, in the end, Zeus didn't reign on a stable throne. He balanced on chaos. But if you thought the king of Olympus's routine was already turbulent, wait until you descend to the underworld. In the next episode, we'll reveal the secret daily life of Hades, the god who ruled the underworld and whose choices shaped the fate of all souls. A dark, silent realm, far more terrifying than any battlefield on Olympus. If you don't want to miss this next chapter, which will forever change the way you view Greek mythology, subscribe now to the channel and activate the notification bell. Trust us, you'll want to be here when this story is told.